Hi. So let's talk about this business of Jesus talking about sifting. A very popular verse or set of verses, um, which people often quote. So it's nothing new, but there's something I need to point out to my listeners and my learners. Now, in the King James, it says, and the Lord said, this is Luke chapter 22, by the way, verses 31 and 32. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, or Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this sifting and to whom was Jesus speaking when he said that? Because most times I've heard persons say that Satan desired to sift Peter. Now let's look at the meaning of the word sift before I even go any further. Let's look at the word sift. And again, I'm using Bible Hub because it is convenient rather than to go to the books. So I encourage you to use the tools that are available and give God thanks for those persons who have had the discipline, the thought to put Bible Hub together. We ought to pray for them and support them financially if you can. So the word is siniadso, and it means I sift or to sift. The root definition is to sift. It is used to mean to I sift, I prove by trials, I winnow. Now, winnow is not a word that we use in our most of our modern day culture, but winnow. When Jesus said, but John the Baptist rather said that Jesus is there's a man who is coming and is winnowing fork. His fork is fan is in his hand. His fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor. That's a cultural statement that needs to be explained within the context of culture before we can understand again our culture. Or else you'll think that Jesus have a big fan that he's going to use and sweep the floor, fan the floor, and whatever is on the floor is going to leave. Or you might think he may put in a big industrial fan and blow away whatever. But some translation use the word winnowing fork, because in that culture, what they did was that when the wheat is harvested, they would trample it. They would use an instrument to crack, to separate the shaft, which is the casing of the wheat, from the grain. And then they would use a fork, a winnowing fork, much like a fan rake that we know of, and throw it up in the air on a windy day. Throw it up, and the wind, according to Psalm 1, would drive the shaft away. So it was a type of sifting, because what they were actually doing was separating the wheat from the shaft. They were doing what? Separating the wheat from the shaft. And so the idea that John used was that there's going to be a separation. It's a symbol of judgment. His fork or his fan or his winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge, clean, meaning separate the shaft from the wheat. Some of you may remember this, some of you may not remember this or did not experience this. But we used to get the peanut from the peanut man in the night when the peanut man is passing. And they still have some of them in Kingston. I don't know about the country parts, but they still have a few of these men who walk with these things, that the peanuts, and you kind of rub the peanut when it is parched. You rub it between your hands, and the red part is separated from the nut, and we now and blow away the shaft. It's called sifting. It's sifting. When you have flour or cornmeal and you want to separate, maybe you suspect that weevil might be in there, you sift it. Use a strainer, we call it strainer in Jamaica, or the sieve, and you sift it. If the cornmeal is coarse, maybe nowadays you get refined cornmeal, but first then you get some real coarse cornmeal, and they would sift it, separate the grain, the larger portion from the finer portion. People who are in construction know this. for when they're trying to get the high grade sand. When they get the certain level of sand, they use a low grade sieve and sieve it, and then they pass it through a finer grade and maybe yet a finer grade, depending on how fine a sand they want. So they separate the larger portion of the sand from the finer portion. So the idea of sifting is separating. And obviously you are separating one kind from another, one thing, one person from another. You can't separate one person. You can't separate one thing. If you sieve the flour and there's nothing there to sieve, then you're only going to get an empty strainer. There's no separation there. So that concept, I want to hold that concept in mind, because Jesus could not be saying to Peter, the devil has asked, Satan has asked for you to be sifted, because you cannot sift one thing of its kind, one kind. You have to sift two different things. You have to separate something that is different. All right, let's go on a little further. So you go to the lexicon, the interlinear, and then select the particular word. When you look at the lexicon, the interlinear rather, of that verse, you will notice that Jesus said to them, he was speaking, he drew Simon's attention, because Simon was supposed to be the leader after Jesus, right? He said to Simon, Simon, or Simon, behold, Satan, demanded to have all of you. That you is a plural you. If you look at it, you will see it as a pronoun in the accusative second person plural. All right? It's plural. He was speaking to more than one, not one. And if you look at some translations, you'll notice it says, some of the translations say, sift all of you. Or some would say, sift you all. Now, if you notice the King James Version makes a distinction between singular you and plural you. So in the King James, it says, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you. When you go over into the second, verse 32, you'll notice here that Jesus said, but I have prayed for, in the King James, it said, thee, that thy faith will not fail. I have prayed for thee, that thy faith and fail not, and when thou art converted. Now, if you'll notice, the thee and the thou is referring to singular. So in that verse, the you from the Greek, so let me go back to 31. In 31, the Greek that is used to sift you is humas. That's a plural you. But when you get to the other verse, to sift you, it's sou, S-O-U. It's singular. That's pronoun. Right? The genitive second person singular. So in verse 31, Jesus was speaking, he drew Simon's attention, because he was speaking to Simon about what was going to happen, but it was going to happen to all of them. Satan has desired, has asked for, has begged, has asked for you to be, you all to be sifted, to be separated, to be scattered, to be tried. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith will not fail. Why? Because Simon Peter was going to be the head. And you know what happened when you strike the head. You scatter the sheep, and you strike the shepherd, you scatter the sheep. So Jesus said to Peter, I have prayed for you that your faith will not fail. Now notice that Peter was going to be tested like all the others, and Jesus did not say, I have prayed that Satan will not touch you, but I have prayed for you that your faith will not fail. Why? This is a lesson to us, because don't believe that Satan is not going to try us. If he tried Jesus and then after he failed, according to Luke 4, in the temptation, after he failed, the Bible said he left Jesus for a season. So it means that he's going to come again. Now, if Jesus did not pray for Satan not to touch Simon, he only prayed for him that his faith will not fail. It says something to us. If you go back to Job, when Satan asked God or accuse Job before God. He said, this is the reason why he's worshiping you and so on, but allow me to touch him. And Yahweh allowed him. He didn't hedge him around and say, no, you're not touch him. He allowed him to touch him, but he gave him a limit. And I want to remind the child of God that Satan has a limit upon your life. He may be allowed to touch you in some ways, but he's not allowed to go all the way because God has put a limit upon him. Now, one more thing before I go. Notice what Yeshua said to Peter now. I, however, begged for you. I have prayed for you. I have interceded for you. I beseeched for you. The particular word that is used means I request, I beg, beseech, pray. I have beseeched, I have prayed for you. I have begged for you that your faith will not fail. And when you are converted, then you are to strengthen your brethren. That word converted, a lot of people I hear say that, Peter was walking with Jesus and he wasn't saved, or walking with Jesus and he was not converted. Understand that conversion is a process. Conversion, being transformed from our nature, our human sinful nature, to the likeness of Christ is a process. This is not what Jesus was speaking about here. Why? How do I know that? The word that is used here, epistrepho, means to turn or to return. And it is used in different ways. For example, I turn back, I turn to, I turn back to, I turn back towards, I turn towards. Or I turn back to, or towards, I come to myself. Interesting. So let me give you some verses, for example, that this word is used in that context, because there are several meanings. Let me go to some of the particular meaning I want in the interest of time. There are several meanings to that word. I cause to return or bring back, to turn oneself about, turn back, to return. The particular context would be this one, to return, turn back, or come back, right? To turn oneself about, to turn around. Peter would have denied Christ, not yet, but Jesus was basically speaking as to what was to come, that he would have denied Christ. And Christ was saying to him, you're going to fail me, you're going to fail. Your faith is not going to fail, but you are going to turn away, you're going to deny me. And let us face it, we don't want to think of our apostles as human beings. They were human beings too. It's a sort of backsliding. He denied Christ. He denied knowing him, and he denied being a part of him. He said, me, I don't know the man. And when somebody pressed him and kept pressing him, he said, listen, expletive, I don't know the man. He began to swear and curse. That's backsliding. And then, but the beauty about it is that, here it is. The beauty about it is that after he came to consciousness, when he came back to himself, he repented. He cried bitterly. It's an act of repentance. Different from Judas, who betrayed him and was remorseful, but not repentant. Difference. Peter was repentant. And so he turned back. He came back. He turned around and came back to his mission. And so he was able to later on Jesus said, feed my sheep, tend my lambs, feed my sheep, 3 times. So let me conclude it by repeating. When Jesus said in Luke 22, verses 31 and 32, Satan has desired, has begged for you, has asked for you to be sifted. He was speaking about all of the disciples. And it did happen, because the night when Jesus was arrested, everybody fled. Everybody was scattered. The only person who followed closely was John. And later on, Peter. And John even managed to squeeze in because John was friends with some high people. Jesus said, Satan is desirous of sifting all of you, separating you, scattering you from each other. But you, Peter, because you are the leader that I'm leaving in charge, I have prayed for you that your faith will not fail. And when you are converted, when you are turned back, when you come back to me and you return to me, strengthen the brethren. That word strengthen means to make fast or establish. All right, support the brethren, strengthen them in their faith. When your faith has returned, when you have returned, strengthen the brethren. It has nothing to do with Peter being people saying, boy, Peter was walking with the Lord and he wasn't saved, wasn't converted. Not so. He would have gone through a period of time in his life when he denied Christ. And Christ was saying, when you have come back to me, you will now strengthen the brethren. I hope that has made some things clearer for you. God bless you.